Hey guys, Montel here, and welcome to this edition of Let's Be Blunt with Montel. And before I bring my guest on, who I really want you to introduce to you and get a chance to talk to, I want to talk to you about something that just popped up in my little news brackets on my phone here in the last couple of days. One is the fact that marijuana has a lower potential for abuse than other drugs that are subjected to the same restrictions, with scientific support for its use as a medical treatment. Researchers from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration have said that. In documents supporting its reclassification as a Schedule III substance, marijuana is currently classified as Schedule I, but reserved for the most dangerous controlled substances on the planet, including heroin, LSD. In 2022, President Joe Biden asked Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra and the Attorney General to begin an administrative process of reviewing how marijuana is scheduled under federal law. And HHS Assistant Secretary for Health, Admiral Rachel Levine, wrote a letter to the DEA in August in which she supported the reclassification to Schedule III, a list that includes drugs such as that have a low to moderate potential for physical and psychological dependence, such as ketamine, testosterone, Tylenol, codeine. And the FDA documents, which are posted online, reflect the HHS evaluation of scientific and medical evidence and its scheduling recommendation. So, folks, right now, not both the Department of Health and Human Services and the FDA have both reached out to the DEA to say, let's reschedule. And this is going to have the potential of changing the entire conversation about cannabis nationwide, not only medical, but also recreational or adult use cannabis. Why? Because it's going to change once we change it from Schedule I to Schedule III, and hopefully they just figure out that they should just deschedule this completely. But once that's done, that's going to change all of the issues surrounding banking, which have been some of the issues that have really thwarted the advancement of this entire vertical as a mainstream corporate obligation for companies to actually provide this medication and product to the public. So this is a big one, guys. And I mean, I'm telling you, if you haven't looked it up, you can look it up yourself. There's information on the HSS website, and there's also information from the FDA that discusses this in length. They can no longer ignore the fact that they have been lying for so long, and they know they have been lying so long because the FDA actually applied for its own patent for cannabis for the U.S. government almost 22 years ago. A lot of guys don't know about that. There's a patent that the U.S. government gave itself back in 2002 that identified in its abstract all the valuable attributes of cannabis, especially cannabidiol. So this is just a tiny step forward. What do you say? A tiny step forward for cannabis, but a big step forward for mankind, with no question. This is a big step forward for cannabis. And hopefully we can get out of this election cycle so somebody can do something appropriate, and that would be reschedule or completely deschedule this as a drug. Now, part of the reason why I even bring this up is because clearly if the FDA recognizes the fact that this is a medication that has potential for help for patients who are ill, patients who suffer from a myriad of different maladies. This is something that, takes the shame out of, takes the, I don't know what do you call it, it takes the spotlight off of those who are using this because they recognize how efficacious this is for different maladies, one of which is like the one I have. And it's the reason why I really started to go back to cannabis back almost 22 years ago was because of my diagnosis of MS. And there are so many people in this country who have other neurological diseases and other autoimmune diseases that cannabis seems to, it's not a cure, but what it is it's a way to help people deal with their illness and some of their symptoms way better than using some of the other pharmaceuticals that are out there. And my guest today is a guest who is going to help us understand why cannabis actually has done some good for his life. My guest today earned a double major in history and Spanish at the University of Arizona and holds 2 master's degrees from Thunderbird and Harvard University. He was diagnosed with MS back in 2003 and is one of Arizona's 200,000 card-holding medical cannabis patients. He ran for Congress in his home state back in 2004 and has served as the executive director of the Arizona Cannabis Association and as the director of government relations for MITA, which is the Arizona Medical Industry Trade Association. Mr. Tim Sultan, thank you so much for being a part of Let's Be Blunt with Montel today, sir.
Thank you. It's great to be with you.
Absolutely. Great to be with you too. But before we jump into cannabis completely, I want you to tell me a little bit about your background, where you're from, where you grew up, what were you involved in before you got involved in cannabis? Tell me a little bit about who you are.
Oh, great. Thanks. So I'm from Tucson, Arizona, where I still live right now with my 2 kids, and I was born here. And I wasn't involved in cannabis until I was diagnosed with MS. In fact, I really wasn't drawn to it really much my whole life. I started using it about 8 years ago. When we about 10 years ago in Arizona, it became legal medically, and I've been involved in business and government, and working for senators and congressmen and people like that, and now I've fully immersed myself over the last 6 years in cannabis, and it's because I went to the MITA meeting. Every month we have a Marijuana Industry Trade Association meeting, and I met Vicente Fox from Mexico. And he and I speak Spanish, and so he invited me down to Mexico to help him legalize Mexico. And I was part of Canna Mexico back in 2018 and 19, and learned a lot about how to structure the law. And so that's when the Arizona Dispensary Association asked me to be their executive director, because the group was putting together a ballot proposition to legalize adult use in Arizona. And so that was 2019. We successfully passed adult use in November of 2020. And since then, I've been working in the cannabis industry, helping brands come into Arizona to get a license to operate legally, getting into dispensaries so that they can sell to consumers. And it's been a really rewarding career. I have sort of a love-hate relationship with cannabis, because on the one hand, because I have MS, and I was diagnosed about 20 years ago, back in 2003, you mentioned, and for 10 years I didn't have any symptoms. I was feeling pretty good, and then all of a sudden, boom, it hit me hard. And I don't know if this happens with other people with MS or other diseases, but when your body is stressed out for other reasons, your disease really manifests itself. It's almost like it triggers your disease. And so I was triggered about 10 years ago, and just been slowly downhill ever since. I was just crippled, really. I couldn't even move. I was just frozen. You might know what that feels like when if you're thinking about something or ruminating about something that bothers you, your whole body just freezes up, and I was unable to move. So a divorce later, couple of years of therapy later, I have a different perspective on life, and cannabis was really the thing that got me through that saved my life. I don't think I could have made it through that difficult time without cannabis.
Slow down just for a second, because you did say that you were never drawn to cannabis before your diagnosis. So, I mean, did somebody suggest cannabis to you because of your diagnosis? Did you seek it out because you studied about it? Let's back up and figure out, why did you even say, yeah, cannabis?
It was just accidental. I tried it, accidentally. Really, it was recreationally.
Okay.
And then it was when I was going through that difficult time when I was married, and I felt really bad about myself, and it was affecting my body. And I noticed that, wow, when I'm smoking that stuff, I have virtually no symptoms. I can exercise, I can walk, I can do all kinds of things that I couldn't do before. And so I started using it, and that's why it's a love-hate relationship, because like my dad says, you need to have everything in moderation. And when something makes you feel, normal again, I just wanted it all the time. So I ended up smoking from morning to night, and I was able to move around pretty well. Great, actually.
And you also started to realize that even by consuming it that much, it really wasn't having that detrimental effect on other aspects of your life, correct?
Yeah, actually, I found that I was operating better, really, than I was when I was not using it. Because when I was not using it, I was in a bad mood. I was slow. I just wasn't feeling like doing anything. It took away the motivation. So the cannabis gave me motivation, put me in a good mood. I was able to get things done. But also you do have to be careful that you don't forget things and put systems in place. And so I started using it, I think, too much. And so as my body started healing itself, thanks to cannabis, I was able to go to yoga. I was able to start swimming and doing other things that healed my body permanently, because cannabis is my temporary crutch that gets me through those situations when I'm just frozen and I can't move. But over time, I don't want to do that forever. So I made a very conscious effort to focus on yoga and strength and getting those tight areas smoothed out. And I found over this time some tricks and tips. Like uh, well, for example, there's a gua sha tool. It's a little thing that you can scrape your skin with, and it's when you have a really tight cartilage or muscle thing, you can scrape yourself, and it relaxes it. It's really truly amazing. So that's one of the things that I use along with cannabis. And then, like I said, yoga is really one of the best things. But the number one thing that helped me heal from cannabis was just being mentally clear. And so cannabis, affected my body, but I still needed to get my mind clear. And I was really interested in your book that you wrote, I think, in 2009 about living. Was it living well?
Yeah, living well with Montel. Yep.
um, because living well emotionally is such an important thing. You have to get your emotions straight, and that helps your whole body heal. Otherwise, if you're thinking about a past harm that had happened to you or something that makes you sad, then your body is never going to recuperate. You have to be able to cleanse yourself of those impure thoughts too.
Absolutely. And I mean, I think what people don't understand is that it's just not because of the psychotropic activity and that takes place when you consume cannabis. There are so many other minor cannabinoids that have such profound impact on neurology and on our bodies in a way that actually are probably what has given you some of the most benefits. And even if you didn't know it yourself, I mean, I know that I don't know if you experiment or utilize a lot of CBDA, not just CBD, but CBDA. If you utilize a lot of CBDA, CBC, you might find that those are not going to give you an illicit psychotropic effect that THC does, but does give you that balancing of feeling in your own body.
Absolutely. And that's why it's such an education when you start using cannabis, because it's such a powerful substance. For the first couple of years, I didn't have the education, and I was just, using whatever strain, whatever thing I didn't know. But now I'm much more aware of the CBGA, all the different CBDA and all the different CBGs and all the other different cannabinoids. And actually, by the way, about 6 months ago, I stopped smoking entirely, and I use only tinctures now, and I use it right before I go to yoga, and it makes my body completely relaxed and strong, and it's like I don't have MS at all. It's just truly amazing,
It
and it
is
has many of those other cannabinoids in there that give you the entourage effect.
absolutely, and you can also, not just you if you're in the tinctures right now, but you can find tinctures. And I'm not sure what they have on the shelves in Arizona, but I'm pretty positive you should be able to find some tinctures that are higher, percentages of the minor cannabinoids than the THC. So you'll get some really, really, really unbelievable benefits if you just started shifting over and taking
Mm.
a look. And again, I think you nailed it. One of the things that's most important when it comes to cannabis isn't something that for people who are trying to get relief for whatever the issue is that they're dealing with, you'll find that before you right now that have more information than the law allows. I mean, we know that there's well over 35,000 peer-reviewed published documents out around the world on cannabis. There's 3,500 of them being published every single year. That's giving you more and more breakthrough information about things that you can look at, things that you can educate yourself about. And just, one of the things about cannabis is it is not one size fits all, but the cannabis does fit all if you figure out what your needs are. And the only way you're going to do that is by reading, studying, and understanding, some of the information that's out there that'll help you make a good choice for yourself or even for your family.
Yep. And people like you and I, we're very fortunate to live in a time like this when we can experiment with cannabis in such a way, and we can do it legally and safely with a lot of resources. Whereas, even 20 years ago, that wasn't possible. People were going to jail for this kind of stuff.
Absolutely, AJ. I don't know if you caught the opening, my little opening monologue for this episode. Most recently, it's funny. There are people who are probably listening in right now going, "Wow, there's no proof." Well, there's enough proof to make the FDA step up to the plate and say, "You know what? We've been wrong." When they say something like, "We definitely believe that this should be rescheduled," they are basically correcting themselves for the last 40 years, even though 20 years ago they had already corrected themselves and had agreed to how much cannabis does work. But now they're going on record to explain the fact that even though there's a lot of research out there, they don't control all that research, but they recognize that it's no longer just anecdotal. Cannabis does work. We now have proof from all over the world for various reasons why cannabis and cannabinoids, have a medicinal effect for some people.
Mhm.
And not only are we living at the best of times when it comes to information, but we're living at the best of times because I think within the next, I think there should be some movement probably after this next election cycle to finally correct some of the draconian laws that were passed in the past and start moving us down a pathway where those who actually need to utilize this medicinally will have the opportunity in every state in this country to do so.
Well, let's hope, because let's hope it happens federally, because I know at the state level, here in Arizona anyway, it has really transformed the opinion and the stigma that people have of cannabis. We're much more free to use it in a controlled environment, and I just am so grateful, because when I first started, it wasn't quite like that. It was a little dangerous for someone, especially who's interested in government and politics and stuff, to be involved in this kind of thing.
Right, absolutely. But you've noticed, and I'm sure that you've noticed even with some of the elected officials, they've noticed that, the sky didn't fall, sky fell, sky didn't fall.
Oh yeah.
If it didn't fall, matter of fact, they are really, 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 really happy about the windfall that they've gotten from the taxes on this. And so
Mhm.
that's I'm hoping that more states, now that we have, I think it's 38 states and the District of Columbia that have all passed some form of cannabis legislation. I'm hoping that these states finally come together and go to the federal government and say, "Hey, wait a minute, you got to knock this bullshit off." Excuse my mouth, but you have to knock this off. You are making it so difficult for us to be able to achieve the goals that you have said yourself. Things like this should be handled at the state level. Well, we're handling it at the state level. Back off. And you can back off by giving those businesses an opportunity to do things that they should be doing, from safe banking to being able to get loans and to get investments for their businesses. Hopefully the states will start stepping up to the plate and saying enough is enough.
Hmm. Yeah, and it's party independent too. It's one of the few things that is not a Democrat or a Republican issue.
Come on now, if you go back to January 6th, there was a lot of pot being smoked when people were
Yeah.
tearing down the doors of the Capitol. I mean, that was a fact. There were people smelling it all over the place. And
Uh,
so, it is an issue that is not Republican, not Democrat. It is an issue of, humanity. It's an
mhm.
issue where people understand that this is not what you've been telling. This is not what you've been trying to say it is for 40 years. This is something entirely different. So now maybe we'll get to the point where we'll start to move forward instead of continuing to move backwards.
Yep. And something else I'd mentioned is you and I both have a debilitating disease, multiple sclerosis, but other people use it as medicine when they have a headache or when you have a stomach ache, and that's also being used as medicine. Because I use it also. If I have a bad stomach ache, I'm going to use cannabis because that's the medicine that I know and it fixes it.
Yeah, but I mean, I think one of the things that's even crazier about that is that we know for a fact that, at least from my perspective, I think anybody who's drawn to cannabis over alcohol is drawn there for some sort of underlying medical reason to begin with.
Hmm.
Whether or not they're doing it because it helps them sleep better, helps them relax when they come home from work, helps them, and not have the bad moods, not have the ups and downs that they have. All those things are medical, not necessarily just recreational or what we call is then try to say as adult use. I think that anybody who chooses cannabis, especially cannabis over alcohol or cannabis, over some pharmaceutical is doing so because there's an underlying medical reason. And so we should allow them that opportunity to do that.
You know what? Actually, come to think of it, Montel, I would just mention that when I was using cannabis, especially heavily, and it helped take away the symptoms of MS. I wasn't necessarily treating the multiple sclerosis. I think I was treating my stress level because the reason MS manifested itself so heavily at that point in my life is because I was under a lot of pressure in my personal relationship. And so once that was, alleviated and and I could relax and my stress level went down, then my symptoms just disappeared. I wasn't hurting myself with my mind.
Sure. But I will tell you that probably inside, again, those minor cannabinoids were doing things like reducing inflammation at the cellular level.
Yep.
There are things that are happening at the cellular level when you utilize cannabis that's different than just, making you feel better. There's things that are actually happening at the mitochondrial level of your cells. We know that, cannabis affects that thing that's in your system. It's called your endocannabinoid system. You are, as a mammal, walking around with cells that are specifically there to be antagonized or agonized by cannabis. We have CB1, CB2 connectors, CB1's in your brain, CB2's in your peripheral organs of your body. So we have connectors that are specifically there for one reason and one reason only, and that is to help produce what we call endocannabinoids, which are those cannabinoids that you make yourself. They're not plant derived. These are cannabinoids that are inside your body. One's called anandamide, the other's called 2-AG. Those are chemicals that your body produces had you never used cannabis in your entire life. Those chemicals are available. We do now know that when you use cannabis, it actually kicks them up into a little bit of higher percentage. And because we've been hoodwinked by governments to stop using cannabis for about 100 years, across the board, mankind's before 100 years ago, most people don't even understand that human beings had pretty much a daily diet of cannabis. Most people don't know that. We used to eat during the 1800s. We ate 1800s to early 1900s. We ate a hemp-based porridge for food. All mankind knew that hemp was probably one of the highest protein-laden seeds on the planet. And so way back in the day, we were actually consuming hemp. And nobody was really that concerned about it. All of our forefathers grew hemp. Go back to the late 1600s, early 1700s, you could pay your taxes with hemp. So, this is something that I think we just decided at a time when it was convenient to use that as a re-enslavement tool. That's the reason why we literally outlawed this to the world and tried to say, no, you can't do this. And now all of a sudden we're starting to realize that there is a serious deficiency in things like anandamide, which is, most people don't know, is a endocannabinoid that your body produces. That is one of the only substances in your body that actually travels through the nervous system retroactively. It goes in the opposite direction. When you injure yourself, that injury produces this anandamide that sends a signal up to your brain to tell you to stop sending more white blood cells, or you start killing off good, cells. So the truth of the matter is, it is part of who we are, and every mammal on the planet is.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit.
You mentioned in one of your other podcasts that even our founding fathers used to use it, and Benjamin Franklin's pipe had residue of cannabis in there. And,
absolutely.
And my ancestors in Egypt used to use it thousands of years ago.
Absolutely. It was all over the African continent thousands of years ago. It was all over the Eastern Asian continent. This is something that has been used by man since early man. I think there's some anecdotal stories about them finding, pipes in caves 1,200 years ago. 1,200, no, not just 1,200, 2,000, 3,000 years ago. So this has been around. You look at the fact that cannabis was written about in the I Ching and several of the Chinese documents dating back between 3,500 and 5,000 years ago. So This is something that has been a part of man. We just jumped in when we knew there was an opportunity to actually attack people of color.
Hmm.
Most people won't want to admit this and won't want to look at it that way. They look at it through the wrong eye. But that's exactly why cannabis was ever outlawed and hemp was outlawed worldwide. And we
Yeah.
know that this is a plant that's got over 2,500 usages, not just the consumer usages that humans do, but their usages. Well, there was a company recently that has already rediscovered what was discovered about 5 years ago. There are multiple companies that are on stock exchanges right now around the world that have been turning some of the biomass from hemp and cannabis into a graphene type substance.
Mhm.
And notable that that substance now has a greater electric storage capability than graphite. So
Yeah.
we can end up making batteries that would be lighter and more efficient than lithium using hemp. Come on.
Hmm.
So what's ignorant is the fact that you threw out the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah. All those hemp seeds. I had hemp seeds for breakfast this morning.
There
It's
you go. So it's
for
one of the highest protein laden seeds on the planet. Tell
yeah.
me a little bit about let's go back up a little bit and talk a little bit about your whole career in cannabis though. Once you
Hmm.
started using it, and you said that I was very fortunate to have met Vincente Fox also when I was on a presentation in Jamaica years ago, and
Oh,
I almost came to Mexico back then to participate. I think probably in one of your earlier conferences.
hey, did you know? Were you with Douglas Gordon in Jamaica? He was also on the board with us at Canna Mexico, and he runs Canex Jamaica. He's a
Oh
very
yeah, yeah, I met him. I met him. As a matter of fact, I think that was the group that brought me in to speak. I spoke
yeah,
there
yeah.
before Vincente spoke.
Yeah,
So
he's good friends with Licenciado Fox.
got it. So when you first gravitated over to it, understanding that it was having some sort of medical impact on you,
Mhm.
what made you think, well, I believe in this enough that I'm going to try to get and make this a
You know,
career?
my main thing was I wanted to get the stigma. I was having a lot of trouble personally using this substance and feeling like I was doing something wrong. I just felt pressure from family and other people that you shouldn't be. It's a bad thing. Bad people use that, and I was buying into that. And so when there was an opportunity with the Arizona Dispensaries Association to legalize adult use, I jumped on it. And I said, well, this is the number one thing I care about, getting rid of the stigma. So people like me with a medical condition feel comfortable even trying it and that we're not bad people. And the polling was insane. In Arizona, we're a very conservative state. Over 60% of the people said they would vote for it. And so we went along and of course it passed. And it served its function. I really have noticed the stigma going away. And so those who really need it are not dissuaded from trying it. The reason I said I had a love-hate relationship is just because when your body doesn't need it anymore, I found that although I mean there wasn't much hate at all. It was mostly a love relationship because I never used alcohol because there's no reason to. If you feel like you are stressed out or you want to have a little more have whatever alcohol gives you, have a little more cannabis, and then it'll go out of your system and you won't have a hangover the next day, and you can have a little more control over it. So I used it to stay away from alcohol, so I really became much more healthy. And but I guess the only caution I would say is not to do it from morning to night if you don't need it. That's all.
Right. And now, though, but then you not only did you get involved in Arizona, but tell me how this whole you met, the former president, Mr. Fox, but how did you get involved in helping set up campus conferences in Mexico back in 2018?
Yeah. So well, one thing led to another. That was the start, being with Vicente Fox, and then coming back down to Arizona, we passed that law, and I work on a regular basis with our regulators, the Arizona State, Department of Health Services. So whenever there's an issue, I would be one of the representatives who represents the industry and would explain, well, this is what we would recommend. And I have to say, our regulator, the Department of Health Services, is wonderful. They really listen to all their stakeholders and really listen to the cannabis people, because they figure we're the experts in this domain and they respect us and take our advice. And so we've been able to help craft many of the regulations that our regulators are regulating us with. And it's a very symbiotic relationship where we help each other.
And Arizona, forgive me, Arizona, not only do you have medical, you have adult use. Has the program changed, and is it running smoothly? Would you like to see changes? What's going on?
It's a great program. It's slightly the only part that has been difficult for some people here is that it really advantages those who are already in the business. So if you already have a dispensary, and it's a limited license structure here, if you only have about 130, 160 dispensaries now, then it's hard to break in. So that's the only challenge that people have found. But that's a good thing too, because in places like Oklahoma, where everyone and their grandmother can have a license to grow, there's just too many, and there's an oversupply, and it's too hard to get your brand out there because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of brands. So this limited license structure has had some good effects also. But I'd say that we have one of the best programs in the country. Our medical program has been incredibly strong, and our adult use program, which the Arizona Dispensaries Association put together, has brought in over $100 million in tax revenue. We have 16% tax on adult use that goes directly to 3 different buckets that are good buckets. One of them is emergency services, police and fire. We've got health services, and then we have some education on cannabis as well. So they go to good places.
But I can tell you something. I really am one of those people who was completely against states putting these ridiculous level of tax on these products. They don't do that for anything else. You don't do it for aspirin. You don't do it for alcohol. You don't do it for anything else. But you're slapping 16% on top of something for, again, something that, whether they're going to call it adult use or not, I still believe that anybody who gravitates to cannabis is gravitating to it for a reason, and they should not be penalized just because their choice is not sclerosis of the liver. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
Yes. No. Absolutely. You're exactly right. On the idea of that, however, in order to get it passed, we had to throw in something. We had to sort of, you have got to buy off certain groups. We had a lot of meetings with stakeholders, and that's what it took. For example, let me just mention one thing, because you mentioned how the prohibition was really kind of a race type of thing.
Yes.
And one of the things that was really important to those of us writing this law was getting people out of jail, getting their the fines waived. Yeah, getting this stuff expunged. And that's one thing that we just couldn't put in the bill. We pulled it, and it would have failed if we had tried to present that to the voters of Arizona. They just did not want people to get off the hook for any past cannabis use that they'd done. And our position was, if it's legal now, why are there people in jail for it? Because they did it 5 years ago. That's not fair.
Yeah, but and it's also like right now what you're seeing across the country. We have states that have passed recreation, and still, because of an individual municipality that opted out, if you drive through that municipality, you can still be arrested, and you can still get stopped and arrested in the same state that has legal cannabis right now. There are as many people being arrested today as there were 10 years ago, and now we're up to 38 states in the District of Columbia. Come on now.
Yep.
I mean, it's ridiculous, because it is this diehard need to hold on to draconian laws to ensure that if they want to put certain people in prison, they can. If they don't want to put certain people in prison, they won't.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And eventually, I hope that we grow up as a society and recognize that there's just, this is just wrong.
Yeah. We're in the middle of a transition right now. Yep. It's better, but it's not perfect. There are states that allowed municipalities to opt out, and others that have decided not to allow them to opt out. And
right. And, in some of those places where they are allowed to opt out, I'm telling you, you can drive, from one street corner across the street to the next street corner and get arrested. You can stand on one street corner and consume cannabis. You walk across the street and do it in another street corner, you're going to get arrested, which is really ridiculous. And especially
and
the taxpayer dollars work on both street corners.
Yeah. What's even worse is that it has allowed the underground, the illegal market, to proliferate. California is a perfect example.
Exactly. I mean, and not only, not
You
only
can't be.
not just California. Listen to me. Back in 2022, I think, no, 2021, we sold over $25 billion worth of legal cannabis in America. And we estimate that another $70 billion of illegal cannabis was sold across the country. Uh,
Yep.
Excuse me. This is really absolutely on the borderline of just
No,
ridiculousness.
no
And
tax.
that's
Anybody
right.
can get in the business. Yep. They don't have the barriers to entry that they do in the
And
legal.
that's why it's proliferating the way it is all the way across the country. All we've done is legalize to promote the illegal business.
Hmm. Yeah. In fact, you talk to a lot of law enforcement folks, and they agree with the legalization part because it's regulated, and they see that when it's not regulated, that people are gonna buy it and sell it anyway. They're just gonna do it from a guy at their house who they stop by, and pick
Yeah,
it up.
or they're going to, like, I happen to have products in the marketplace in both Massachusetts, and I'm about to have products in the marketplace in Georgia. And in Georgia, they have legally sanctioned, licensed dispensaries, but right across the street, they got a bodega, and the bodega across the street puts a sign up says I'm a dispensary.
Yeah.
And there's nothing to make that illegal. And these people are selling crap like THCH, THCO, THC, T8O, and doing it in a way that is right in the face of the legal market, but nobody's doing anything about it because, again, these variants, people can get away with selling because they have not been officially outlawed by the DEA yet, but they are going to be. And, that puts a really nasty, face on the entire industry.
Yeah.
You are consulting now also with
Uh-huh.
cannabis businesses in Arizona. Tell me what that's about.
Oh, sure. And I'll just mention one last thing about what you were saying about having products out there is I don't know if you've shined a light on the hemp products, but there are psychoactive hemp products because
Oh,
you
that's what I was just saying when I was at THC 8, but people don't understand that the 8 that they are getting from the hemp products are products that have been basically manufactured using crap that's from underneath your sink.
yes, they've been converted. They use that
Correct.
word conversions, and those are horrible because they use all kinds of weird chemicals on very good cannabis, and they bring in these outside chemicals to convert the CBD into THC because CBD, for $250 a kilo, you can convert that to marijuana that's 10 times that, $2,500 a kilo.
And that what you're converting to, we don't know in any way, shape, or form whether or not, again, I'm not sure whether or not THC 8, which does exist in the marijuana plant, but
Hmm.
in very, 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 very small amounts. We're not really sure what that does, the chemical version of it. It's just like a Marinol thing.
Yeah.
And whether or not it's really actually impacting your endocannabinoid system the same way as legitimate cannabis does.
And there are people who take the hemp plant and they can find that little tiny bit, and those are good because they get the real stuff. But almost all of them are taking CBD isolate and they're converting it into THC, and then that's the bad stuff because that has all the weird chemicals in it.
Correct.
You have to
Absolutely.
be really careful. Don't want to go down to the gas station and buy your vape cartridges there because there's probably something that's been converted.
But you say you don't want to do it, but unfortunately, that's the reason why they're being sold in the gas station because people are buying this trash.
They don't know. They don't know that they're bad for them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, you helped pass the adult use legalization bill in Arizona back in 2020. Why did it take more than 2 years after that for retail sales to commence?
Well, they had to set up the regulations, and such, and get the process set up. The Department of Health Services did what they could. They interfaced a lot with us, with the Dispensaries Association, to figure out what the right rules are. Do we need to have testing? And we said, yes, we do. We need to have a committee of people, testing the stuff. So we kind of went. It was a learning process. Yeah, it took. I guess it did take a year or two to before retail sales really began. But I thought Arizona was one of the fastest ones. Some of the other ones take even longer.
Well, actually, looking at Maryland and other places like that, they've been just up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, not getting to it.
It's tough when
And
there's so many different stakeholders. Yeah.
correct. And especially when, states like Florida, where, we got a guy who's running for president who literally so was as shady under the table as he possibly could have been with administering and giving out some of the licenses, making sure that certain friends of his got licenses first. in the state, not even looking at whether or not their capability of producing the product was as good as they thought it was.
No
Um,
kidding. Florida, I didn't realize that.
oh, hell yeah. Hell
Wow.
yeah. Florida's been
Surprise.
embroiled in bullshit because of DeSantis now for the last 6, 7 years, and will stay that way as long as he's anywhere around.
Huh. Yeah, I know people have had a lot of trouble in Florida. That must be it. The governor's not not helping much.
No, he's helping his buddies, his cronies. It's like the former governor and the former senator. They're helping
Yeah.
their cronies, but they're not really interested in helping the industry as much as they are helping their cronies. And those
Yeah.
same cronies that give them back money for their campaigns.
Hmm.
Um, so what do you think is working? You said you think that Arizona's got a really good program, but what do you think is working the best and what needs to be improved?
Um, well, like I say, what is working really well is our structure and our relationship with the regulator. Some of the things that haven't worked so well, our social equity program didn't work. It was a big fracaso, as we say in Spanish. We
That's been the same thing all over the country. I mean, we
Yeah.
use social equity. I don't know. I can't give an analogy, but it's just a bullshit term,
You
honestly.
know, it, and I was part of the group who actually, put this together with the Dispensaries Association with all of our best interests, and it still got messed up because, some people in this industry, they're vultures because there's so
Correct.
much money at stake. And so if you are an existing dispensary owner in Arizona and we just issued 14 new social equity licenses, that scares you. That means that's competition. 14 more stores are going to come and take your business from you. And so some of the dispensary owners who have a lot of political, influence, um, talked to the zoning boards and made sure that the zoning was such that only the original owners could put a dispensary in the city. And all the social equity people were going to have to be relegated to the rural areas outside the municipal boundaries. And so the zoning area is one way that you could keep them out. So social equity stores, many of them are out in the middle of nowhere in the boondocks where there are very, very few customers. And that was all by design by the political machine.
Absolutely, absolutely, to maintain their control for their cronies again. So
Uh-huh.
now, again, what do you put on a crystal ball? What do you think is going to happen when it comes to the federal government in the next year or so?
Yeah, so I think the writing's on the wall too. It all depends on politics, and who knows what's happening with politics. But the people of America are ready for this, and
I know there are polls that say that there are more than 90% of the public believes that marijuana should be made legal medically. Or for the first time, we've crept over 70% of the people in the country think it should be made legal for adult use. So the constituency in the country believes in cannabis and they
yep,
believe in its value. They believe in the fact that, and what the same thing that we've seen in almost every single state where there is a cannabis law, opioid abuse goes down.
yeah,
Drug abuse in other categories goes down, rather than contrary to even the current president's belief that it's a gateway drug. We realize that it's not a gateway drug. Cannabis is more of an exit drug from
hmm,
opioids and harder substances. So go ahead. I'm sorry. So you're right.
yeah, no, and what we found in Arizona, for example, was that the politicians were never going to legalize this. Our political situation is such that there's no way that was even conceivable. But the people of Arizona wanted it in that hold in the '60s, and so that was the way that we got it passed here, is by asking the people to vote directly. You can't do that in a national level. You don't have ballot propositions. That was the mechanism that we used to get this law passed. We have to somehow get the politicians to be persuaded to do it. And I don't know.
And right now, but I'm going to tell you something. Right now, with the people that we have in office who are so focused on their own individual greed, we're up against the private, prison lobby and several other organizations who would prefer to keep this on the books so that they have a way to continue to enslave people of
Oh,
color, whether they be black or Hispanic, rather than
yes.
answer the will of the public.
Yes, that's a great point. In Arizona, we have a group called ALEC, ALEC, and they put in independent expenditures with the Koch brothers and others with millions of dollars to oppose things like this because It's just finances. They make a lot of money by incarcerating people, so much money. We have these private prisons and they're making a ton of money. And by legalizing this, now all of a sudden they're gonna have an empty hotel and they're not
They
gonna make.
might, but they'll still figure out a way to make sure that it sits on the shoulders of those who are the least of us rather than those who are the most of us. I mean, I'm hoping I would see a brighter day, but I think we're going to have some of these entrenched politicians go away, whether or not they, retire or,
Mhm.
and as you notice, what politician retires these days? They all stay there until they drop.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's the biggest money making boon in America today. Our political system went from being a place where, we had people who were working people who wanted to go to work to do the will of the people. Now we have people, I think if you go back to 1980 even, you'd see that we probably had less than 10 to 12% of the entire Congress Senate were worth $1 million. Now I think the numbers are somewhere high of 70%. There must be a reason why you want to keep that job for a long time, right?
Yeah, it's awful. 20 years ago is when I first ran for Congress, and it was a whole different place back then. I wouldn't even want to be in Congress right now. They don't seem to get anything done. The last two Congresses have gotten zero done.
They don't seem to get anything done for the country or for the public, but they do get a lot done for themselves
Oh
because
yeah, they're very busy, very busy.
you can openly just steal. I mean, it's like a license to steal from the American
Right.
public.
Yeah, I noticed there's that guy who's finding out all the stock trades that members of Congress do, and he's sharing
Correct.
with people because they're making huge returns. We might as well invest in the same things they are.
Correct. Yeah, you got to look up. Yeah, try to follow whatever you see your congressman or senator put money. That's where you need to put money in because it's going to make money.
Yeah. But you know what though? There's hope for the people because in places like here in Arizona, we had, the people put together this ballot proposition and the people voted for it and now it's law and they can't do anything about it.
There you go for sure. Well, anything else you want to add, my friend?
Mainly, I just wanted to share, I guess, my journey of healing, and I love that you have the same philosophy where cannabis has helped you heal, and you even wrote a book about it. And for me personally, I just feel like I wanted to share to other people who have MS or other diseases or things that are inhibiting their physical ability and stuff, that they can use cannabis as a tool, as a responsible tool to get better, and it can just save your emotions, save your body, save your life. And what I've been able to do is use it in heavily in order to get my body strong again and my mind strong again. And now I'm at a point where I don't even need it. I only use it when I want to. If I'm going to a yoga or if I'm going to go for a big workout or something, then I'll use it and dose it properly. And
Well, but again, what you could do is remember the minor cannabinoids are as much of value to you as the THC. So therefore, instead of like saying, well, I'll use a little less THC, that's fine. But I ensure that every single day I put a CBD product in my body every day. I don't
can I
go
ask you
to
what you recommend since you have MS also? Because I don't do that, and I really am going to start doing that.
Well, again, I created formulations of products myself out of the Massachusetts area, and I would love to get into Arizona. If you can figure out somebody down there that might want to, partner with me to bring my products there, I'd love to talk to you about it.
Oh,
Um,
yes, I do. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
yeah, but I have formulations of vape carts, and I also have those same formulations in tinctures and in gel caps that allow for a higher percentage of the minor cannabinoids to be mixed with THC. And in some cases, I have as high as 75% minor cannabinoids, only 25% THC. And all those minor cannabinoids include CBG, CBD, CBC. I have specialized terpene formulations. And so, what people need to do, I mean, I would suggest to you is that seek
Oh,
out, a dispensary near you that has a broader spectrum of available
hmm.
minor cannabinoids. There's no question that CBG, there's no question that CBC, there's no question that CBDA will be of benefit to you. So I would suggest trying to find, and there are some dispensaries like in California, there's some dispensaries on the East Coast
Hmm.
You can walk in the front door and they can give you a tincture or a gel cap that has no THC in it whatsoever. So on
Yeah.
those days you don't want to have THC, make sure you put in some CBDA or some CBD in your body. You are going to be affecting your endocannabinoid system, which if you know for a fact, and you can look it up yourself, the data is out there that your endocannabinoid system is what regulates your cellular homeostasis. So if all your cells in your body are getting rid of all those free radicals and actually clean and operating at full efficiency, that'll help you operate at better efficiency.
Oh, I want to get your products. Let's get them over here so I can buy them at the dispensaries. We don't have stuff like that. I mean,
I would love to have you over. I've got some really good products out right now in the Mass area, and again, hopefully, we will have our products on the shelves within the next 60 days in Georgia. So I'm really excited about that, and excited about expanding across the country.
Great. Oh, thank you for doing that. Honestly, I haven't found anything that had that, and so I have to have a guy who I know who is an extractor, Andy Hall. He makes this special tincture for me with stuff in there. But I had to go to
Yeah,
my
I,
friend
I,
to get.
I could throw this out because I do talk about it quite often on my podcast. But I've been working with a company out of Southern California called Juice Tiva. They are from Southern California. There's a company that's been around for about 40 years. They've got over that much expertise in manufacturing products, but this is a product that can be sold all over the United States. You can have it shipped to your house. It's CBDA, and I'm telling you, probably one of the best quality products that I've ever used myself. I use it every day, and will continue to use it because you can kind of saturate your endocannabinoid system with that acid form, which is way more bioavailable. So keep it in your body. Keep CBD running through your body as much as you can. Okay.
And it doesn't make you. It's not psychoactive either,
Not
right?
psychoactive whatsoever. Zero
Wonderful.
psychoactivity. And then when you're looking around at some of your dispensaries in Arizona, see if you can find somebody though that has either a full broad spectrum cannabinoid product. So it's got to have THC in it, it's got to have CBD in it, it's got to have CBG in it, got to have some CBC in it. All those minor cannabinoids are going to do you some good, and you won't see the same level of psychoactive ability or psychoactive activity. Okay.
Okay. Well, I'll do that until you get your products in Arizona, and then I'm
All
going to
right,
get your
sir.
products.
Well, let's work on that together. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All
Look
right. Well,
forward.
you stay well, Tim. Thank you so much for being a part of Let's Be Blunt with Montel. And thank you for tuning in to this edition of Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Thanks for joining me on Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear your feedback also, so please send us your comments.